My son looked me dead in the eye last winter and said, "Dad, you're just a broke old man. Stop pretending you matter." So I did the only thing a broke old man could do. I sold the warehouse he worked in, and the house he thought already belonged to him. And I did it without raising my voice, without warning, and without a single ounce of regret. If that hits you hard, good. Because it hit me harder than any punch I've taken in 60 years of living. My name is Samuel Merritt, and this is the part of my life I never thought I'd speak out loud. If you're watching this, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're hearing my revenge story from. I want to know how far the truth has traveled and how far my son's arrogance carried him before everything came crashing down. Let's begin. Evan didn't flinch when he said it. Not a twitch in his jaw, not a hint of hesitation in those blue eyes he got from his mother. "Dad, you're just a broke old man stuck in the wrong decade, and it's time you stopped holding the rest of us back." There are moments in a man's life, moments so sharp, so clean, that you can feel them cut right through the bone. That was mine. A 60-year-old man standing in his own living room, being told by his only son that he no longer belonged in the life he helped build. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like he was delivering a diagnosis, like I was some rusted tractor somebody forgot to haul out of the yard. For 12 years I'd let that boy believe I was nothing more than a forklift operator at the Merritt cold storage facility on the Wyoming line. Just an old-timer, punching a clock, scraping by, grateful to have medical insurance and a paycheck that cleared. For 12 years I wore the same canvas work jacket, drove the same 2001 Silverado with the peeling paint, packed the same ham and mustard sandwiches. I let people assume my life was small, and people, my son included, treated me exactly the way folks treat what they think is small. Truth is, there's something almost comforting about being underestimated. Folks don't watch you as closely. They don't ask too many questions. And in my case, it let me protect the only thing that ever mattered, the legacy my late wife and I built with our bare hands, long before Evan learned how to spell his own name. But Evan didn't know any of that. He only saw the surface, saw what he wanted to see. Then he married Lily Harper, the daughter of a family that treated status like oxygen. The Harpers come from northern Utah, money, country club money, winter home in Park City money, the kind of money that doesn't have to say it's rich because everything around them says it for them. Their world runs on polished smiles and perfect table settings. Mine runs on busted knuckles and knowing how to keep a truck running past 200,000 miles. It didn't take long before Lily started noticing things about my house. At first it was harmless, a comment here or there. "This place has potential," she said the second time she visited, running her manicured fingers across the railing like she was checking for dust. "Evan, imagine what we could do with this kitchen," she said one Thanksgiving, opening cabinets like they already belonged to her. And slowly, little by little, the words changed. "From the house to your house, Sam, to our place." Then one day, casually, as if it were already decided, "When Evan and I live here, once we make the improvements, it'll really shine." I remember standing at the sink washing a cast iron skillet, thinking, improvements to the house your husband didn't buy and you didn't build. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because when you're my age, violence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is listening before you strike the right match. A month later, Evan came over alone. It was a Saturday morning, cold enough to see your breath. He walked in without knocking. That had become a habit, and said, "Dad, Lily and I were talking. This place is too big for you. You should think about downsizing to something for seniors. Maybe a condo closer to town." I looked at him, holding the same coffee mug I'd used for 20 years, and wondered when my son started talking to me like a financial advisor on TV. Seniors, I asked. You think I'm done living because I'm 60? He shrugged, avoiding my eyes as he scrolled his phone. It's just practical, Dad. You don't need all this stoicism. And, well, the house would serve our future. Lily wants to start trying next spring. Our future. As if I didn't exist in it. Now, before you think I'm the bitter one, let me tell you something plain and simple. I love my son. I loved the boy he was, and the man he still could be, if he'd only stop performing for people who wouldn't cross the street for him if he stumbled. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them step on your throat and call it kindness. Still that day, I didn't raise my voice, didn't fight, didn't say how the wall of this home held every laugh his mother ever let out. Didn't tell him I planned every inch of this place so he'd have somewhere safe if life ever beat him hard. No, I just nodded, and he left thinking I was agreeing with him. That's the thing about entitlement. It lets people hear the version of the conversation they want to hear. Weeks passed. Lily kept talking about future nursery colors. Evan kept mentioning long-term planning. The Harpers invited me to dinner once and spent the entire night telling me how simplifying my life was the responsible thing. I still didn't say a word. Silence is a dangerous thing when a man like me holds it. It's storage. It's fuel. Then came the day, the one I'll never forget. A bright Tuesday morning, snow melting on the driveway. Evan standing by the kitchen counter, wearing that navy dress shirt he always wore when he wanted to look important. He didn't sit down, didn't smile, didn't soften the blow. Dad, he said, Lily and I talked to a realtor. The house fits our future better than yours. You have 45 days to move out so we can begin renovations. Just like that. 45 days. From the mouth of the boy I held the night he was born. I stared at him, letting the words settle into the old oak cabinets, into the tile grout his mother picked out, into the quiet heartbeat of the home he clearly never understood. 45 days. I should have yelled. I should have broken something. I should have told him exactly who he was talking to. But instead, I breathed one slow breath that tasted like cold air and old memories. I didn't argue, I said, because I knew something he didn't know. I knew the one door I was going to open next. People don't look at a man like me and see $80 million. They see the rust. The rust on the fenders of my 2001 Silverado, the one with the busted tailgate cable and the dent from a mule kick back in '09. They see the dust on my boots, the faded flannel shirts, the hands that look like they've spent too many winters outside, which they have. They see a man living alone in an old cedar cabin on 8 acres of scrubland outside Fort Collins, the kind of place folks speed past on the highway without noticing. And that's fine. The world sees what it wants to see. Every morning for years I'd pack my lunch, 2 slices of wheat bread, cheap mustard, leftover chicken if I had it, and wrap it in the same wax paper. I'd toss it into a cooler with a thermos of coffee and drive to the Merritt cold storage facility near the Wyoming border. Not as the owner, not as the founder, just as Sam, the forklift guy who didn't say much. There's a strange kind of freedom in being invisible. People talk around you, not to you. They assume you're harmless, forgettable, small. And I let them. Because while they were assuming, I was building quietly, steadily, year after year. 41 cold storage centers across Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and Nevada. A fleet of refrigerated trucks. Long-term supply contracts with companies big enough that most folks would recognize their logos in an instant. But none of that mattered when people looked at me. They saw a man who packed his own lunch and drove a truck older than some of Evan's co-workers. They didn't see the 8-figure net worth, or the national logistics footprint, or the fact that half the grocery stores in 3 states relied on my company to keep their shelves full. And honestly, I liked it that way. But Lily didn't. To Lily, everything was content. Everything was a performance. Everything was a chance to show the Harper's world that she belonged. So she started posting photos of my house on Instagram angles meant to highlight every scratch on the floorboards, every outdated knob, every wall my late wife painted by hand. A renovation project stuck in boomer taste. She captioned one picture of my living room. That one cut me deeper than I expected. People online chimed in fast. Yikes! My grandpa's place looks just like this. Just tear it down and start over. Boomers never know when it's time to move on. This house screams retirement home energy. I sat there one night scrolling through the comments on my ancient flip phone, holding that little screen like it was burning me from the inside. I wasn't angry. Anger is hot, loud, unsteady. What I felt was something colder, older. A kind of ache you get when someone mocks a memory you built with a person you'll never see again. That house wasn't just walls and roof. It was the last place my wife ever laughed. It was where Evan took his first steps, where he threw tantrums, where he learned how to ride a bike on the gravel driveway. But to Lily, it was content. It was potential. It was our place once we fix it. One night, I overheard her talking to a friend on speakerphone in the guest house. Sam just doesn't get modern value. He's sweet, but the poor man doesn't see that holding on to old things keeps him stuck. Evan and I can make something real out of that property. Something real. As if the 30 years I spent there were imaginary. The shift in Evan didn't happen all at once. It never does. Entitlement works like erosion, slow, steady, barely visible until half the hill has slid away. He emailed me one afternoon from his office, a place filled with people who thought he came from success, instead of inheriting proximity to it. Dad, Lily and I think it's best if we get some legal guidance so everything is smooth. I asked an attorney to draft a preliminary transfer agreement. Don't worry, it's for your own good. For my own good. Funny how people say that right before they take something from you. I didn't respond. Didn't call him back. Didn't lash out. Instead, that night, when the house was quiet and the wind rattled the junipers outside my window, I walked to the back room, the one room Evan never cared about, and pulled the old cedar chest away from the wall. Behind it, bolted into the floor under a rug only my wife and I ever touched, was a steel safe. Scratched, heavy, cold. The kind of thing no one would expect a broke old man to own. I knelt, entered the code my fingers remembered, even if my heart resisted, and listened to the quiet click of the lock releasing. Inside was 20 years of truth. Documents, deeds, ledgers, contracts, the entire spine of the life I'd built when no one was watching. I rested my hand on the top folder, Merit Freight Holdings, and whispered to no one. They think they know who I am. I closed the safe slowly. But they're about to learn what I've really spent my life building. The envelope was thick, thicker than anything meant for kindness. It arrived on a Wednesday morning, delivered by a courier who wouldn't meet my eyes. I stood on the porch in my work jacket, the cold biting at my cheeks, while he held out the packet like it was a summons from God himself. Mr. Merritt. That's me. Need your signature. Certified delivery. He didn't stay. He didn't need to. Men like him never linger around trouble. I broke the seal with my thumb. The first page hit me harder than Evan's words, harder than Lily's. Instagram ridicule, harder than anything in the past decade. Notice of intent to transfer property, pursuant to Colorado Elder Property, Stewardship Statutes, 15 to 14 to 101. 2-15 to 14 to 112 Elder. Stewardship transfer. 3 words that tasted like rust and humiliation. I read the rest standing there in the doorway, the morning sun slanting across the hardwood floor, My wife once polished on her hands and knees. Mr. Merritt, due to concerns regarding your ability to responsibly manage and maintain the property, known as 218 Juniper Ridge Lane, it is recommended. As if this was a doctor suggesting vitamins. That ownership be transferred to your next of kin, Evan Merritt, to ensure proper care, long-term value preservation, and safe occupancy. Like I was a hazard in my own damn home. Attached was a letter from the Harper & Bell Law Group, which conveniently shared the same last name as Lily's father. At the bottom of the page in soft gray font was a phrase that nearly made me laugh. This action is intended solely for your benefit, comfort, and protection. Comfort. Protection. That's what people call a cage when they want you to thank them for it. 2 hours later, the Harpers arrived. Not a phone call. Not a text. They showed up with purpose. Lily dressed like she was shooting a lifestyle ad. Her mother in a pristine white coat. Her father with that smug, I know better posture. Sam, Mr. Harper said, stepping into my living room without waiting to be invited. You've received the paperwork. I nodded. His wife gave me a sympathetic smile, the kind people give stray dogs. Now don't get overwhelmed, she said. These statutes exist because older adults sometimes become vulnerable. Older adults. I'm 60, not 120. Lily chimed in, her tone soft, but sharp enough to draw blood. We just want what's best for you, Sam. Evan and I have talked about it. You shouldn't be living out here alone. You could move into one of those assisted living communities in Loveland. They have activities, healthcare support. I run 6 miles every morning, I said. She blinked. Her parents exchanged glance. Musty stare. Harper cleared his throat. This isn't about fitness. It's about responsibility to younger generations. You've had your time, Sam. Now it's our turn to build a future on something stable. On something stable. He meant my home, my land, my life. Then Evan walked in. He hadn't knocked either. He didn't hug me, didn't greet me. He just went straight to the dining table, my table, and spread out documents, like he'd rehearsed it. Dad, he said, tapping the top page, we're not doing this to hurt you. You don't need a big property. You don't need the upkeep. Lily and I can make better use of it. I swallowed the heat rising in my chest. And if I refuse, I asked. Evan didn't hesitate. We'll have to proceed under the statute. Harper & Bell already confirmed we have grounds. Lily's mother added quietly, it's better if you agree voluntarily, Sam. These things can get complicated. I looked at each of them, these people who claimed to care about me, while they stood in my home, pointing out all the ways they planned to erase me from it. I've been called many things in my life. Hard-headed, old-fashioned, stubborn as a mule. But never, not once, had I been treated like I was incapable, disposable, in the way. My hands shook not with fear, but with something deeper, something that felt like betrayal, layered over insult, layered over a grief I thought I buried with my wife. For the first time in years, I felt small in my own house. Not because I was small, but because they wanted me to believe I was. I didn't shout, I didn't rip the papers, I didn't tell them who I really was or what I truly owned. Instead, I excused myself and walked down the hallway, every step heavier than the last. In the quiet of my bedroom, I reached for the phone on the nightstand, a cheap flip phone with a cracked hinge. The same one people teased me for still using. It rang twice. Martha, I said when she answered. My attorney for more than 25 years. She knew me better than most of my family did. Her voice tightened immediately. Sam, what's wrong? I need you, I said simply. And I need this done fast. Name it. Draft the kind of documents that stop a man from losing what's his. A pause. How fast? 48 hours. I'll clear my schedule. I hung up, and dialed the second person. Sam Nathan Cross, CEO of Merit Freight and Cold Storage. My employee, though only 3 people in the world knew that. Nate. I said, we're accelerating the timetable for the Wyoming facility transfer. Move the contracts. Today. That's ahead of schedule by months, he said. Is everything okay? It will be, I replied. He didn't ask more. He knew better. The third call took the longest to dial. When Abigail Rourke answered, her voice was the same warm, steady anchor that pulled me through the worst year of my life after my wife passed. Sam, it's been a while. Abigail, I said, my voice low. I need an emergency session tomorrow, and I need you to witness something difficult, something that might get heavy. She didn't hesitate. I'll be there. I closed the flip phone and set it gently on the dresser. Outside I could hear the Harpers murmuring, strategizing, planning the future they thought already belonged to them. I stared out the window at the land my wife and I built a life. On the land I'd die protecting. Then, with a calm I hadn't felt all day, I whispered into the empty room, I didn't call them for revenge. I called them to protect what my wife died building with me. I knew something was off the moment I pulled into my own driveway and saw the line of luxury SUVs parked like they were blocking off a parade road. Range Rovers, a Tesla Model X, a Lincoln Navigator so freshly waxed it practically glowed under the porch lights. My old Silverado looked like an unwanted stray mutt between prize-winning show dogs. I stepped out, wearing the same faded jeans I'd had since Evan was in high school, boots with creases older than his marriage, and an old canvas jacket the cold air couldn't quite cut through. In my hands, I carried a $6 apple pie from Thompson's Market, the kind of small-town dessert people eat without needing to take a picture first. But Lily didn't even try to hide the look on her face when she opened the door, a look caught somewhere between embarrassment and panic. Sam, she said, her voice too bright. You made it. Didn't know it was in question, I replied. Behind her, my house looked wrong. Candles I'd never seen, white linen tablecloths. I would have never used a catering staff moving around my kitchen like they owned the place. Strangers filled the rooms. Evan's co-workers in tailored shirts. Lily's design clients in outfits that cost more than my truck. The Harpers charming the crowd as if they'd rented a venue, not invaded my home. My home. And here I was, treated like an afterthought, walking into someone else's party. Lily took the pie from my hands and blinked at it, like she'd been handed a dead squirrel. Oh, how quaint, she said slowly. Then she passed it to a caterer without looking. Just put this somewhere. I stepped inside. Conversation slowed. People looked me up and down like I'd wandered into the wrong house. A man in a sport coat leaned over to a woman next to him and whispered something that made her snicker. Evan appeared, adjusting the cuffs on his dress shirt. There you are, he said. Dad, didn't you get the note about the dress code? No, I said. Must have missed it. He rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. It's fine, just try to blend in, okay? Blend in. In my own home. I walked through the living room, except it hardly looked like a living room anymore. Lily had staged it like a showroom throw, blankets over every chair, fake eucalyptus in glass jars, a welcome to our gathering sign, propped where my wife's old quilt rack used to be. A woman with diamond earrings pointed at the wooden beams overhead. Look at this, she said loudly. Original beams, so rustic, but definitely needs refinishing. Another man chimed in. This whole place screams outdated lifestyle, but with the right renovation budget, it could be breathtaking. Lily laughed. Oh, believe me, I've already drawn up plans. Plans for a house she didn't own. Evan guided 2 of his friends toward the hallway. And this, he said proudly, opening the door to my bedroom, without hesitation will become the nursery once the transfer paperwork is complete. I froze. My bedroom, where my wife's pillow still lay untouched on her side of the bed, where her necklace box bought on the dresser, where I whispered goodnight into the dark for 10 years after she passed. One of Evan's friends nodded approvingly. Smart use of space. And where will your dad stay? Evan didn't miss a beat. He'll be in the shed-turned-guest room out back. It's good enough. He doesn't need much. Good enough. That shed, where I stored tools and memories he hadn't asked about in years. The evening rolled on like that, one humiliation after another. Mr. Harper led a group through the dining room, like he was giving a real estate tour. Once they remove these cabinets, open up this wall, you'll gain at least another 200 square feet. His wife nodded. Of course, they'll need to modernize Sam's aesthetic. My aesthetic. I found myself clenching and unclenching my hands. Not out of anger. Anger was too easy. This was different. Something deeper. Something that came from being erased while still standing in the room. Soon plates were cleared, wine glasses refilled, and the chatter turned to one thing: the property transfer. Evan tapped a spoon against his glass. Everyone, he said, voice smooth, confident, too proud for his own good. Thank you for joining us tonight. Lily and I want to celebrate the future of this home, a place that will soon be part of our growing family. People clapped. Lily beamed. The Harpers practically glowed. Mr. Harper lifted his glass. To new beginnings, and to Sam, for making the responsible choice. Mrs. Harper added, it takes humility to step aside for the younger generation. Lily squeezed Evan's arm. We're so grateful, Sam. Truly. I picked up my own glass, cheap red wine they'd poured for me, while everyone else drank the expensive stuff. I held it there for a moment, watching the reflections of faces that had already written me out of my own life. Then I set the glass down, letting the bass tap softly against the wooden table. The tap cut through the room like a knife. 20 people fell silent. I looked right at my son, then at Lily, then at the Harpers. Before you take my home, I said quietly, there is something you need to know. The room didn't quiet down. It collapsed into silence. Every laugh, every clink of glass, every smug grin dissolved the second I said those words. It was like somebody cut the electricity to the whole damn house. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't glare. I just reached into the inside pocket of my old canvas jacket, the same one they all thought made me look like a groundskeeper, and pulled out a small black folder. A cheap folder. Bent at the corners. Nothing fancy. Funny how people forget that the most dangerous things in life never come wrapped in gold. I laid it flat on the table. Lily blinked at it like it might stain her manicure. Evan's smile froze half-formed on his face. The Harpers leaned in, ready to pounce on whatever misunderstanding they assumed I was about to confess. I opened the folder. The first page slid out like a blade. Articles of Incorporation, Merit Freight and Cold Storage Holdings, LLC. Founder, Samuel R. Merritt. Date 2003. Mr. Harper's jaw went slack. I placed the second page on top. Ownership Ledger. 41 facilities across CCO, WI, UT, ID, NV 100% controlled by Samuel R. Merritt. No co-owner, no silent partners, just me. The same broke old man stuck in the wrong decade. Whispers broke out around the room. What? No way. Is that real? Lily's face drained of its perfect contouring. I continued. Next page. Bank statements. Merit Holdings. Operating account. Current balance. 31,482,919 gasps. A glass hitting the table. Someone whispering, oh my God. Next page. Trust and investment portfolio. Merit legacy account. Total current value, 5207 or 81Z04. Evan made a sound I'd never heard from him before, something between a choke and a plea. I wasn't done. The final document was printed on heavy paper, the kind only law firms and corporations use when they want to make damn sure something feels official. Letter of Declined Acquisition, Harper Food Distribution, Inc. Addressed to Richard Harper. Signed Samuel R. Merritt. Dated 5 separate attempts over the last 9 years. I looked Mr. Harper in the eye. You tried to buy me out 6 times, I said calmly. You never knew the man you were negotiating with. He went pale. Not embarrassed, exposed. Lily sank into her chair as if someone had cut the strings holding her up. Her perfect polished world cracking right down the middle. But Evan didn't move. He stood there stiff as a fence post, staring at the documents, like they were written in a language he'd forgotten how to read. Dad, he whispered. What? What is this? I closed the folder gently, like tucking a child into bed. This, I said, is my life's work. The work your mother died believing in. The work you never asked me about. A murmur spread across the room, shock, disbelief, shame, awe blending together into a single thick silence. But that wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out another sheet folded twice, simple, plain. I unfolded it and placed it beside the folder. Evan recognized it first. His face drained so fast I thought he might faint. Facility transfer document. Merritt Cold Storage, Cheyenne Division. Sale completed yesterday. 417 Buyer Cross, West Logistics. Effective control immediate. I beat. Then it hit them. Lily gasped. That's where Evan works. Mr. Harper's head snapped toward Evan. Isn't that your company's sole cold chain hub for the Northern Corridor? Evan swallowed hard. Dad, why would you? I cut him off gently. Crosswest is restructuring the lease. They'll renegotiate everything your company depends on. Rates, truck access, scheduling, storage capacity. Your CEO will get the new terms on Monday. They won't be pretty. A trembling silence fell over the room. The kind of silence that comes after a bomb. Not the explosion, but the awareness that nothing looks the same anymore. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. Revenge isn't sweet when it's against your own blood. It's a quiet ache, one that comes with knowing they forced your hand. I looked around the table. Lily's mascara streaked down her cheeks. Richard Harper's confidence cracked like thin ice. Mrs. Harper clutched her pearls as if they could shield her from consequences. And Evan, my son, my only child. He looked like a boy who had just realized he'd been playing checkers with someone who'd spent a lifetime mastering chess. He stumbled forward, palms flat on the table. Dad, he whispered, voice breaking. Why? Why didn't you ever tell me? I met his eyes finally, for the first time in years really met them. Because you never asked, I said softly. Then I straightened my jacket, breathed steady, and spoke the truth they all needed to hear. You planned to take the home I built with my wife. A pause. But you forgot to ask who I was. For a long moment, no one breathed. The truth sat heavy in the center of that dining room, an uninvited guest they couldn't charm, silence, or ignore. I slid the folder back into my jacket, then folded my hands on the table. My voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. There's one more thing I need to clear up, I said quietly. Lily flinched as if she couldn't handle another blow. Mr. Harper straightened his blazer, trying to rebuild an ego that had just been flattened. Evan stared at me, like the world had fallen through a trapdoor. You've all been talking about renovations, nurseries, repainting, ownership, I continued. And I've been patient, far more patient than any of you deserved. I pointed to the hallway. That, I said, keeping my tone steady, is the main house. The home your mother and I built. The one I paid off in cash. The one I've lived in for 27 years. Then I pointed out the window toward the small building behind the oak trees. And that is the guest house. The converted shed. The one Evan and Lily have been living in for the past 2 years. A ripple of whispers cut through the room. Mrs. Harper frowned. But Evan said, I know what Evan said, I replied. And I know what you assumed. But assumptions don't change property lines. Lily looked stunned, jaw, slack eyes wide. We thought. You didn't think, I said gently. You expected. Before anyone could argue, I pulled out my flip phone and dialed a number I had memorized long before any of them entered my life. Martha picked up on the second ring. Sam. Is it time? Yes, I said. Put me on speaker. The Harpers exchanged uneasy glances. Evan swallowed hard. I set the phone in the center of the table. This is attorney Martha Lee speaking. Her voice came through, crisp, authoritative. Who am I addressing? Richard Harper, he said, trying to sound in control, but failing. Good, she replied. Richard, before you make any further claims, I'd like to read from the document Evan and Lily signed on July 2 summers ago. There was a shuffle of papers on her end. Month-to-month occupancy agreement, she read. Property, 218 Juniper Ridge Lane. Guest apartment. Monthly payment, $275 for utilities only. No rent. Rights temporary occupancy revocable, at owner's discretion, with 60 days notice. The room sucked in a collective breath. Furthermore, Martha continued, the agreement states that the guest apartment is not considered a primary residence, nor does occupancy grant any ownership, inheritance, expectation, or future rights to the main property. She paused long enough for her words to sting. Mr. Merritt, Sam, has already filed the necessary notice. Evan and Lily Merritt have 60 days to vacate. Lily's face collapsed. Evan's knuckles turned white as he gripped the back of a chair. Mrs. Harper shot up from her seat. This is outrageous, she snapped. They have nowhere to go. Martha's voice didn't soften. That is not a legal argument, ma'am. Mr. Harper bristled. Surely we can negotiate. Sam, we can come to know, I said. Just that one word. Firm. Final. This wasn't anger. This wasn't spite. This was a man taking back the space he had been elbowed out of. Evan's voice cracked as he stepped toward me. Dad, please, can we talk privately? Just you and me. I turned to him. There's nothing private about what you tried to do, I said calmly. You involved lawyers. You involved your in-laws. You involved half the damn town when Lily posted my house as a boomer renovation project. He winced. And now you're going to deal with what you put in motion. He pressed a hand to his forehead. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were. That's not the problem, I replied. You didn't care. You didn't ask. You didn't treat me with respect because you didn't think you had to. Evan's voice shook. Dad, it's just a house. No, I cut in. It's my wife's memory. It's my life's work. And you tried to take it like it was a piece of furniture you ordered online. Lily sobbed quietly behind him. Mr. Harper tried one more time to salvage the situation. Sam, if we could reconsider. I turned my gaze on him, steady and cold. You came into my home and treated me like a burden, like an obstacle, like a confused old man who needed guidance. So let me give you some. I leaned in slightly. Your family doesn't get to negotiate terms in a house you don't own. Silence. Dead, heavy, suffocating silence. Evan suddenly stepped forward, desperation spilling out at the seams. Dad, he said, tears welling. You're ruining our lives. The room held its breath. I stood tall, 60 years of hardship, grief, and dignity settling into my spine. No, son, I said quietly, not unkindly. You ruined your own life by believing I was less than you. I should have known the world wouldn't stay quiet. Entitlement doesn't just collapse, it just detonates. And in Lily's case, it detonated live on her phone. It happened less than 2 hours after the dinner, close to midnight. Snow had just begun to fall, dusting the windshield of their white Audi as they sat in the driveway. I didn't see the live stream myself, but the internet made damn sure it reached me anyway. The next morning, in the video, Lily's mascara streaked down her cheeks, her breath fogging the camera, hands shaking. She pressed go live. And then she broke. I can't believe what we did, she sobbed into the dark. We tried to take my father-in-law's house. God, we actually tried to force him out. And her voice cracked. He's not poor. He's a millionaire, an $80 million man. And we treated him like trash. 10 seconds. And 20 viewers. 30 seconds ready. By the end, 42,000 people were watching her unravel. She kept talking, kept confessing, kept bleeding out the truth. We lived in his guest house like freeloaders. We pushed him. We shamed him. We humiliated him on Instagram. And he just sat there. He never said a word. We were so entitled. She didn't sugarcoat a thing. She didn't shift blame. She didn't try to defend herself. She detonated her own reputation live for the world to see. And the internet ate it alive. By sunrise, TikTok had 200 reaction videos. Reddit threads titled "Millionaire Phil Teaches Entitled Kids a Lesson, Chef's Kiss." Facebook moms were sharing it like a morality fable. Lily's design page lost every client she had. Evan's company issued a statement distancing themselves. The Harpers were dragged at every charity event they frequented. By noon, Evan was removed from his position. Not fired yet, but placed under review, which is corporate language for start packing your desk. Lily shut down her business page entirely. Sponsors pulled out. Clients demanded reruns. Her inbox flooded with messages ranging from pity to venom. Richard and Elaine Harper got cornered at a country club brunch by people whispering behind menus, and by the end of the day, half the board members of Elaine's charity asked her to step back until things settle. All because of a 6-minute meltdown filmed under a layer of falling snow. And me, I stayed quiet. I went about my morning routine: coffee, the old stovetop kettle, hissing, the steady groan of the cabin's heater warming the walls. But inside, everything felt twisted, heavy. This wasn't victory. This wasn't satisfaction. It was grief, wearing the mask of justice. Because no matter what they'd done, Evan was still my boy. My only boy. And watching the world rip into him left a bruise on my soul that I didn't show anyone. By the third morning, snow had piled up on the porch railings. I stood outside with a mug of coffee steaming in my hands, breath visible in the freezing air. The sky was that pale gray Colorado gets before more snow comes, in a quiet kind of warning. That's when I heard tires crunching on the driveway. A small figure stepped out of a beat-up Subaru hood, up shoulders hunched, hands shoved in his pockets. Evan. He walked toward me slowly, snow clinging to his hair. He didn't look like the polished manager who always had answers. He looked like a lost kid, standing in front of a man he didn't know how to face. He stopped 2 feet away. Didn't speak for a long time. Finally, in a voice scraped raw from days of crying or not sleeping or both, he asked, "Dad, were you testing me all these years?" The question hit me harder than anything he'd ever said. Because it wasn't anger. It wasn't entitlement. It wasn't even shame. It was a son trying to understand the wreckage he'd made of his own life. We talked after dinner, really talked for the first time in years. The stew bowls were still warm on the table. Snow tapped against the windows in slow, steady rhythms, like winter itself was waiting to hear what would happen between a father and the son he almost lost. Evan sat across from me, hunched forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped the way he used to sit when he was 10, and afraid to tell me he broke a window playing baseball. Except now, the stakes were heavier, the wounds older, the silence between us thicker. "Dad," he said quietly, "can I ask you something? Without you getting angry, I haven't been angry." I answered, just disappointed and tired. He nodded like he deserved that, because he did. Then he breathed out, voice cracking just enough that the boy he used to be peeked through. "I don't know who I am without shorties, without privilege, without the safety net I didn't even realize I had until I lost it." He stared down at his hands, turning them over, like he was examining someone else's fingers. "Do you know I've never earned anything?" he said. "Not really. Not fully. Every job interview I walked into, I believed I deserved the job before I proved anything. Every promotion felt inevitable. Every time Lily and I couldn't afford something, I assumed you'd eventually step in. I lived like life owed me." He shook his head slowly. "I think that's the ugliest truth I've had to face. I've been entitled." For a long moment, I didn't speak. Not because I was holding anything back, but because when a man finally looks at the ruins of his own ego, you don't rush him. "You know," I said gently, "your mother and I didn't live modestly because we had to. We lived that way because we wanted you to learn what matters. We wanted you to build your own life instead of inheriting ours." He looked up, eyes red. "I took all of it for granted, didn't I?" "Yes," I answered. "But not because you're cruel. Because comfort can turn into blindness if someone's not careful." He let out a weak laugh, sad, hollow, but honest. "That blindness cost us everything." "No," I corrected softly. "It just cost you the illusions. Illusions were all you and Lily really had." We sat in the quiet a little longer. Finally, Evan asked, "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me the truth about the business? The money? Who you really are?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the years settle across my shoulders. "Because I wanted you to respect the man, not the money. And somewhere along the way, you stopped respecting either." He swallowed hard. "I judged you for living simply. I treated you like you were small." I nodded. "You judged me for being old," I said. Then I added quietly, "But age is just time, son. Character is choice." He closed his eyes, like the words hit him clean through. A tear rolled down his cheek. Not the dramatic kind, not the social media kind. Just a silent human one. "I want to do better," he whispered. "I want to be better. I know it'll take time. And I know I don't deserve forgiveness yet." I didn't tell him he was wrong. Didn't tell him he was right either. Healing isn't a switch you flip. It's a long road you walk with someone when you're ready, not when they demand it. "I don't need you to be perfect," I said. "Just honest and willing to work." He nodded, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve, like a kid who forgot to bring tissues. "What do I do now?" he asked. "What does a man who's never earned anything earn?" First, I stood up, walked to my study, and pulled out a small stack of folders, contracts, reference letters, contacts of people I trusted. "Tomorrow," I said, placing them gently in front of him, "I'll help you apply at Greenwood Transport. It's a small outfit in Loveland. Good people. They don't care about your name or your past. They care if you show up." His eyes widened. "You'd help me?" "I'll give you the tools," I said. "The work has to be yours." Evan nodded, holding the folders, like they were something fragile, because in a way they were. They weren't a job. They weren't a guarantee. They were a second chance. Not forgiveness. Not absolution. Just the first step toward being a man who no longer needed his father to rescue him. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, quiet, snow-heavy weeks where the mountains stood still, and I learned something peaceful. Silence is kinder than anger, and distance can teach lessons no father ever could. I didn't hear from Evan or Lily during that year, and I didn't chase them. Some truths don't need repeating. Some consequences don't need pushing. Life takes care of the rest. Then one Saturday afternoon, the crunch of tires on gravel pulled me away from chopping wood behind the cabin. But it wasn't the familiar hum of Evan's old Audi or Lily's BMW. Those were gone anyway. What I heard was weaker tired, like an engine held together by prayer. A 1998 Toyota Corolla, faded blue dented bumper, mismatched hubcaps. One of those cars that smells like crayons and old air conditioning. The kind of car you borrow from a friend when everything else in your life has fallen apart. They stepped out slowly. Evan wearing thrift store jeans, a jacket one size too big. Lily with her hair tied in a plain ponytail, no makeup, clutching something to her chest. They didn't look broken. They looked real for the first time in years. Evan cleared his throat. "Dad, we wrote something. Could we read it to you?" I nodded and leaned against the woodpile, the cold air biting at my cheeks. He opened a folded, wrinkled piece of notebook paper. His voice shook not from fear, but from humility. "Dad, for years I thought success was measured in salaries, houses, cars, and the opinions of people who never cared about me. I thought growing up meant moving past where I came from. I forgot that everything I had came from the man who gave up his life to raise me." He took a shaky breath. "These last 3 weeks, I've learned more about myself than in the 32 years before it. I work at a call center now, $60 an hour. Nobody cares about my MBA. Nobody cares about my last job title. They just care if I show up on time and treat people decently. And Dad, I'm learning to do exactly that." His voice cracked. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. "Our new apartment in Greeley is $950 a month. Tiny. The heater rattles. You can hear the neighbors cough through the walls. But for the first time, Lily and I know what it means to earn something honestly. We know what it means to live within our means. We know what it means to be grateful. Dad, I'm sorry. For the house, for the arrogance, for the years I didn't ask who you really were. I don't want your money. I don't want your property. I just want to learn how to be the son you deserved." He folded the paper with trembling hands. Lily stepped forward next. She opened her own letter, handwritten on floral stationery edges, wrinkled and stained by what I suspected were tears. Her voice was soft, steady, painfully honest. "Some I used to think worth came from likes, clients, expensive decor, perfect angles. I built a life out of staged pictures and validation from people who didn't know my soul. Losing all of it was the best thing that ever happened to me." She swallowed hard. "I work at a small furniture shop now, minimum wage. I sweep floors. I unload inventory. I listen to people talk about what they can actually afford, not fantasies. And for the first time, I'm not ashamed of who I am, without filters, brands, or an audience." Her eyes lifted to mine. No eyeliner, no gloss. Nothing but raw sincerity. "I'm sorry for every comment, every assumption, every time I treated your home like a project instead of the place your heart still lives. I don't ask for forgiveness. I ask for the chance to grow into someone who deserves the second chance I hope you'll offer someday." She folded her letter, hands shaking. Neither of them cried loudly. They didn't beg. They didn't perform. They just stood there, two people stripped of pretense, pride, and illusion, offering me the most valuable thing they'd ever held: humility. I let the silence breathe. Let winter settle around us. Then I spoke. "Come inside," I said. "Dinner's almost ready." Their faces softened like someone had handed them warmth in the middle of a snowstorm. Inside the cabin smelled like beef stew, simmering on the stove. Simple, hearty, the kind of meal my wife used to make on cold nights. I set out 3 bowls, the chipped kind I never threw away. Evan offered to help. Lily set the table quietly. No phones, no pictures, no designer opinions. Just the sound of the wind outside, and 3 people trying to rebuild something broken. As we ate, Evan told me about learning to budget. Lily laughed about burning their first attempt at homemade soup. I told them how proud their mother would have been of honesty, not success. We weren't healed. Not yet. But there was a crack in the door where light could slip through again. And sometimes for a family that's fallen apart, a crack is enough to start rebuilding. Night settled over the mountains, the way only a Colorado winter knows how. Quiet, heavy, almost acrid. The kind of night where even the pine trees seem to hold their breath. I stepped out onto the porch with a blanket over my shoulders and a cup of coffee cooling between my hands. The sky stretched wide above me, a black canvas pricked with stars so bright they looked close enough to touch. My breath drifted in pale clouds, rising and fading like small ghosts against the cold. For the first time in months, the cabin felt still. A hole, and inside the dinner plates were cleaned, the stew pot washed, and the echoes of Evan's voice, humble, uncertain, honest, still lingered in the air, like warmth from a dying fire. I sat down in the old rocking chair my wife bought at a thrift shop 25 years ago. It creaked the same way it always had, a familiar sound that made the past feel close enough to sit beside me. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Nathan Cross. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Evening, Sam," he said. "Just confirming. Are we setting aside that entry-level operations job? For your son, I can draw up the paperwork by Monday." I looked out at the snow drifting across the meadow, settling on the dead grass, like a blessing. For weeks, that was the plan. I thought giving Evan a foot in the door was the fatherly thing to do. Give him a safe landing, a controlled fall, instead of a crash. But something changed tonight. Something important. Evan didn't ask for a shortcut. He didn't hint. He didn't circle around the subject. He asked how to earn his life back, not how to have it handed to him. I leaned back in the chair, the cold wood pressing gentle truths into my spine. "Nathan," I said quietly, "cancel the job." A beat of silence. "You sure?" "Yeah," I breathed. "He's learning to stand on his own 2 feet. Giving him a back door into my company would only knock him down again." Nathan chuckled softly. "He's lucky you're his father." "No," I corrected. "He'll be lucky when he learns to be his own man." We hung up, and the porch fell silent again, just the crackle of the wind through the pine branches and the soft hum of an old man's heartbeat, slowing to something peaceful. I set my coffee on the railing and pulled out a small leather-bound book from the inside of my jacket. My wife's journal. The last thing she ever wrote inside was a single sentence: protect the home, but more importantly, protect the values inside it. Tonight, for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had finally kept that promise. I traced my thumb over her handwriting, then closed the book gently, like putting a child to sleep. The house behind me stood steady and warm. The land was quiet. My son was out there learning who he was, not who he inherited. And me. I felt lighter. Older, but lighter. I looked up at the stars one last time and let the kind of truth slip out that only a man over 60 can fully understand. The best inheritance isn't land or money or a company. It's knowing who you are when nobody rescues you. I closed the journal, held it against my chest, and let the night carry the rest of my grief away.